What are sheep supposed to eat? I am surprised at all the bad information that's out there circulating this simple question of what do you feed sheep? In today's video, I'm talking about what sheep should eat, what they should not eat, and what are the situations to kind of bend the rules. So on our homestead, we practice regenerative agriculture on a small scale. We love the superpower that ruminants have to be able to take roughage, forage, and grass, weeds, whatever, and turn that into fertilizer, which heals the soil, creates soil health, all that jazz. Sheep are ruminants, like cows and goats, and ruminants are different from other typical farm animals, say like a pig or a chicken. Ruminants have extra chambers in their stomachs that allow them to ferment the food and extract the maximum amount of nutritional value from it. So if sheep are ruminants, then why the heck are there so many grain-focused products marketed toward sheep and shepherds? Let's get into that. So to answer the simple question, what should sheep be eating? Well, I can tell you from my sheep, they eat grass and clover and forbs. That's it. So my grass in my fields are mostly perennial native grasses. We have a lot of weeds that come up here. I have planted quite a bit of clover, which the sheep love. But other than that, that's about their diet, folks. So what would a sheep prefer to eat? Picture a cow and a goat. A cow would prefer to eat basically grass, maybe some legumes like clover or alfalfa. A goat would prefer to eat branches and brambles, weeds, stuff like that with a little bit of grass. A sheep is in between those. About 2/3 of their diet they prefer to be neat, nice grass and clover, and the other third is just kind of the random stuff. And that varies. If you have hair sheep like a Dorper, a Katahdin, a St. Croix, they are going to prefer to eat a little bit more roughage. My friend that I sold my Dorper to, he was showing me what they're feeding his sheep, and he just goes into the forest and cuts down a tree once a day, like a sapling, and they eat the leaves off of that. That's a hair sheep for you. That's a hair sheep's hair sheep. Whereas a wool sheep, those sheep would prefer more grass, more similar to a cow. So wool sheep more like a cow, hair sheep more like a goat. So what should sheep not be eating? Before I talk about grains, let me talk about copper. Sheep do need minerals in their diet. Copper ain't one of them. So if you've got sheep and goats mixed together and you put out a goat block, that could kill or seriously make your sheep very sick. I remember asking my vet once, hey, so what's the deal with sheep and copper? And the vet said, oh, that's really easy. They just die. So I've never tested her on that. I just avoid copper like the plague. I suggest you do that too. Now, some sheep minerals will have a little bit of copper in it. Just like with people food, get used to checking the labels on your sheep stuff. The other thing that I think that sheep really should be avoiding is corn. So corn is a grain. So first off, sheep don't need it, especially like I really like meat and hair sheep varieties, okay? Those sheep especially don't need and frankly don't want corn. So why is corn marketed towards sheep? Corn is an easy way, and grains for the most part are an easy way to make your sheep look good or look bigger at the drop of a hat. Joel Salatin has a great line in Polyface Micro, which is kind of like Joel Salatin's mindset, but on a homestead level. And he made this point of, it's really easy to take an animal that's subpar and feed them grains for a few weeks, and then they look like good animals. So in the short term, grain can really turn that around a lot, which you can see where I'm going with this. A lot of people that market their sheep strictly for meat, they grain feed them. But sheep don't need grains, and they especially don't want corn. Corn is just too hot of a grain for sheep. Now, some people could say, well, like what if it's fermented or soaked corn? Nah, that might help, but I just don't see a need for it. So grain and corn can make a sheep, look a little bit healthier in the short run just because they put some fat on them. But just like you and I, if we were to eat garbage, we'd get a little bit bigger, and then we start getting sick. So it can make your sheep sicker, if that's not reason enough. And when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm talking about as a steady diet. Like if you're the kind of person to like get your sheep just to cooperate, you've got a handful of corn, no judgment on my part. I do that all the time with oats, with whole oats, usually soaked whole oats. Like if you need them to do something to cooperate, sheep can be stubborn, and if you need to motivate them with a little bit of something, go for that. I'm talking about, full diet of grain. Two other reasons why not to feed grain. Number one, the meat keeps longer if it's grass-fed, grass-finished, okay? Grain-fed lamb won't last as long in your freezer. Probably a good lesson there, that it's not healthy for the sheep. And then the second reason is when a sheep eats corn or other grains, a lot of those nutrients, excess nutrients, go toward their nails and their horns. So if you're a really big fan of clipping nails and clipping horns, that's what grains are for. But if you want a healthier sheep that lasts longer in the freezer and that doesn't contribute to long nails, avoid grains. Okay, and I mentioned this before. If you are going to feed your sheep grain for certain reasons, I just like whole oats, not sweetened oats or anything like that, just whole oats that I soak in water just to kind of increase the palatability of it. And because I don't want sheep, chomping down and like choking on the dry oats. So what are reasons to do that? Well, I mentioned one earlier. Moving sheep, we rotationally graze our sheep on the pasture, and they can be a challenge to move sometimes until they get the swing of it. And if they know that the sound when you shake the bucket means that there's some grain in there, that makes life pretty darn easy when you're moving sheep. So that's one reason. Another thing, if you have to, get your sheep into like a chute or something to deworm or to tag them or to do anything like that, it's really nice if they recognize what the like shake, shake, shake of the bucket means, so they come to you. And then if you just have new sheep, I don't think there's anything wrong with them just getting used to you as like a buddy, as a friend, as a caretaker by, just giving them a tiny bit of grain. Again, the point of this is that they should not be getting full-on grain. Okay, so what about minerals? There's kind of two schools of thoughts with minerals. Number one is just buy, whatever your store has near you that has a picture of a sheep on it, you can go with that. And that's going to cover a good chunk of it. They'll free choice it. Sheep have a natural intuition that when they need minerals, they'll go for it. There's also mineral blocks that do a lot of that too. Mineral blocks are kind of annoying because either they're a solid salt block, which I don't feel like they're getting enough salt off of, or else they'd have to like lick it all day to get it. Whereas like loose minerals, they dab their face in it and they're done. Or there's those kind of like grain mineral blocks that if those get wet in the rain, like they're garbage the next day, and now you've spent a bunch of money on a few of those and they're garbage in one rainstorm. So I don't like those. What I do give a full endorsement is I do love Redmond salt. I have no relationship with them, but they do a lot of stuff right. I really like their Selenium 90 for sheep. It's kind of hard to find, but a lot of your local feed stores, if you ask them for it, they can order it for you to save you a lot of money on shipping and handling. Selenium is very useful, especially if you have pregnant or lactating ewes. It's a micronutrient, not a macronutrient. So a macronutrient being like protein, carbohydrate, or fat. A micronutrient being like a vitamin or a mineral. In this case, obviously a mineral. Selenium is a great mineral just to keep your ewes healthy. And there's nothing wrong if your rams take it too. It probably does something good for them too. But selenium is all pretty good. It's a great super mineral for sheep. And Redmond Selenium 90 has the most of it in one bag. And then finally, as a bonus, I really like Icelandic kelp, just another good set of vitamins. It's, like a multivitamin for sheep, whereas as I was talking about in micronutrients, you have your vitamins and your minerals. Well, your minerals are your minerals, your salt. And then the vitamins, it's more like the Thorvin's kelp, which is another good reason I'll mix that into the soaked oats sometimes, just to make sure they're getting a little vitamin with it. Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. All right, so if you have not figured out why I like feeding ruminants grass and not grain at this point, let me share one last thing. It's cheaper, okay? If you have grass, that's free. If you have to go, like I'm raising pigs for the first time right now, and I am floored with the amount of times I'm going back to buy more pig feed and the cost associated with that. It is very hard to do pigs profitably on a small scale, whereas sheep, if you got grass, you got food. So economically, better for you and better for the soil health. There's just no reason really not to make sheep and forbs the primary source for your sheep, for their food. Grass is cheaper, easier, and healthier for all parties involved. So when someone asks you what do sheep eat, you've got a lot to answer that with, but I hope the first thing you say is grass. Thanks for watching today's video. I'm PJ with the High Mountain Homestead, and I'll see you on the next one.